probably the most important part of your guitar and the most overlooked in the beginning.
Yes, my friend.
Today we're going to be talking about a bunch of necks. I'm going to lance this thing now. We break it down, baby. Alright, my friend, thank you so much for being here. And as you can tell, today we're in a different setting. And like I was saying, today we're going to be talking about probably the most important part of your guitar.
The neck.
Why do I say that we neglect the neck? And of course, mainly this message goes just a little bit more towards the beginners. But there's also a few other things that we're going to talk about that even the most seasoned players are going to find maybe interesting. And more importantly, I think we're going to be doing it in a very lighthearted way. Nothing too pretentious. We're not going to be talking about like the regular names and millimeters and inches. Zero measurements overall. I'm just going to be talking about appreciation and how I can process into words what I feel in my hands. And what I've come to find are the differences in the different necks of the guitars that I have. All this, remember, you have to take it with a grain of salt because you and me, my friend, even though we're very similar and we're friends, we're different. So obviously there's a few things that you're gonna like that I don't, and there's a few things that I like that you don't. And that's why mostly in this video, I'm gonna try to take myself away from the equation and I'm gonna try to just describe things so that you can just feel what I'm feeling with words. Right? But let's stop the talking. Wait, we're not actually stopping the talking. This is gonna be all talking. Let's go. Today, my friend, we're going to start this tour of necks with this Fender American Professional Telecaster. I mean, everybody says like it's like a Fender American Professional. Let's just call it the American Telecaster. This is the 75th anniversary commemorative Telecaster that just came out a few years ago. Beautiful guitar, and I did attach some sentimental value to it, so let's just talk about it. And why am I bringing this guitar out first? Mainly because this is the guitar with the biggest neck, like the fullest neck that I own. And even though it's nothing like the old vintage ones, like the old baseball bat that the old Teles used to have, it's still a pretty chunky neck. It fills your hand in a nice way. And I feel like altogether, it just helped me really like organize my thoughts and like find better ways to tell you the things that I want to say. All right, let me get my notes. And let's do it. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to try to do is establish a few terminologies, okay? Number one, the distance that you see from the top right here to the bottom, I'm going to be calling the width of the neck. And even though you may argue that it's like the height, and you can consider it the height if you want to, but I'm going to be calling that the width. And the distance from front to back, I'm going to be calling depth. Just to make it easier for us, okay? On top of that, these little areas right here, in the top and the bottom, we're going to be calling those shoulders. And you're going to hear that we're going to be talking about those a lot. All right, let's do it. So what are the main things that caught my attention about this guitar? First and foremost, like the neck is like super consistent. The way it starts in the first fret pretty much feels the same in the 12th and when it meets the body. With the small exception that there's actually a little bit of a carve in the shoulder, making it a little bit thinner in that area. I assume that that helps you when you're right here to put your thumb in a position that it's a little bit more comfortable maybe. But let me tell you, don't get too excited because it's like almost unnoticeable. I want to say that out of all the necks, this might be the one that has like least like comfort features maybe. If you play it nicely in one part, you play it nicely everywhere in the neck. Then in the width department, which we established is the distance right here, there's a lot of real estate for your fingers right here. I feel like you almost don't find yourself touching other strings too much. There's more than enough space for every single one of your fingers to just touch one string at a time. And of course, if you want to mute with your fingers, you just move them a little bit and that's it. So my fat fingers are happy in this neck. And in terms of access, I feel like, let's say if you want to make chords, past that G chord, it's almost impossible for me with like my intermediate scales to just like actually get a chord right there. But G, you can really make it happen really easy. That G sharp, it's a little bit harder. That A, I can almost not make it happen. Between the way my hand hits this section and the block in the back and this tall part right here too, all of those things basically work together so that I cannot really reach the spot that I want to reach. But that's okay. And you know what? Let me get a little bit more light. It's a little bit dark, especially when we get to the darker fretboards. And now our guitar number 2 by Gibson Les Paul Studio, which has like the modern flavor of Gibson Les Paul. And yeah, maybe it's not vintage or whatever, but the idea is that I'm trying to show you guitars that are very accessible, maybe not cheap, but accessible, and you find them everywhere. So I feel like it's a good sample if you want to figure out what necks are and how different they feel from each other. So following in that same structure, I want to say that maybe after that Tele, this would be like the second guitar that has like the fullest kind of like neck, but the shape is like super different. Because where that one was very rounded and it just felt like almost like a semicircle if you want to think about it that way. By the way, this is how I'm going to be doing this video. I'm going to be always comparing one neck with the other so that you can actually have an idea. And if this bouncy method is a little bit too much for you, maybe watch it in half speed. I'm sorry, but we're just chilling talking about guitars here. We're not like trying to save the world. Anyway, I digress. So where that Tele like felt like very rounded, I feel like this one is just basically like if you were like to get the very, very top of that neck and just like basically shave it a little bit so you don't have like a big mountain. It's basically a very rounded neck with a lot of shoulder, but like they sanded the very tip of that mountain and it just made it a little bit flat, sort of like a plateau or like a mesa. I don't know how you call that. You know what I mean? Like those blunt kind of mountains. That's how this feels. And even though it's very thick, it still doesn't feel as thick as that Tele. And sometimes I even wonder if it feels a little bit thinner than, for example, the Strats and all the other guitars that have like maybe a C neck, just because of the fact that it has that flattened back. So basically what ends up happening is that you have like your thumb and your fingers sort of like in a parallel way, thanks to that back of the neck being shaved in a way that it's like parallel to the fretboard a little bit more. Other thing to point out about this neck is that it's like very flat, so it almost feels like an acoustic guitar. You have a lot of space for your fingers there, and there's like enough separation from string and string, so it's not really super hard to play and like not hit strings that you didn't want to hit, you know what I mean? Almost feels like every time I play, it's easier for me to feel which string I'm hitting. So I want to say maybe if you're starting out and you do have big hands, something like this could be a great choice for you. Because it doesn't force you to be super accurate to still sound good. There's enough space to do everything you want to do. Since it's pretty flat, it's pretty easy to play. And it's a very middle of the road neck that it's not going to be super hard for you to hop from neck to neck if you get really used to one of these. Where let's say if you use something more boutique with like something more esoteric, then it's going to be a little bit harder when you try to like experience the shock of going from one guitar to the next to the next to the next. In the case you have to do that. I know that everybody's case is different and like some people just play one guitar and that's all you guys need because you have your own sound and that's what you want. But I know that a lot of us too, like me for example, we have like studios and we need to get sounds different. You know, like when I do my tones, for example, for Amplitube, maybe I can try to make every sound with one guitar. But I feel like that's just painting myself in a corner where I'm like fighting what I don't want and trying to help it become what I do want instead of just starting with what I want and get it to be better and better and better and closer to what I hear in my head. There's no reason to be fighting uphill battles, my friend. There's no extra merit just because, oh, it was harder for me because I chose to do it the hard way. No, my friend. Do what's easy and what you enjoy the most. If fighting the things is what you enjoy the most, good for you, my friend. Keep fighting. But yeah, this is a very middle of the road guitar. And something I feel like very interesting to mention about this guitar is just the fact that it's like flattened on the back and that the shoulders are very high sort of makes me feel like there's like preset sections that I can put my thumb in the back. It's not really something that you can just gradually put your thumb wherever you want. I mean, everything, like I said, take it with a grain of salt because yeah, you can put your thumb everywhere you want. But if you like played the guitar to what it is, you sort of start feeling like, okay, this kind of wants me to put my thumb right here when I'm in this section. And when I want to do this kind of chords, I want to put it right here. And then if I'm doing like solos, I can do this. You know what I mean? It's like a dance that you can put your thumb in different positions. But where some other necks, you can actually put it everywhere and feel like exactly as comfortable. In this one, you kind of like don't. You put it here and you feel like the guitar is asking you to put it there for you to feel comfortable. And you're like, okay, so here's where it goes when I'm doing this chord and this guitar. So yeah, it does have its own personality and you have to just play to it, you know? Now, in terms of axis, you can do that A chord really easy. And I'm focusing about chords because I know most people talk about like the fret axis, but you know, I feel like I can get every fret on every guitar. So I never felt like that's a complaint that I have. But let's say if I want to make chords in this higher octave and I just want to replicate this. In some guitars, I'm going to be able to do that easily. And some guitars, it's going to be really hard to do it. Next guitar! Okay, moving on in this parade of necks, we have my Fender American Professional 2 Stratocaster. And this one, my friend, is really close to that Telecaster. But I would say that maybe the shoulders in this one are a little bit more shaved off. Basically making that transition from the shoulder to the back of the neck smoother, rounder. And where the Les Paul was a little bit flattened, this is really not. But of course, it's not like that huge back of the neck. I feel like it's very hard to show these kind of things. And of course, I know that there's tools and stuff like that. But like I was saying, this is just two friends having a conversation and I'm letting you know what I feel. Again, you have a lot of space for your fingers here. And I want to say that just the way that this neck is made, makes it a little bit easier, or maybe not easier, but more inviting to like actually play chords with your thumb over the fretboard. Which I don't do too much, but in this guitar, I feel like it's a little bit easier than in other guitars. For example, if you're like playing some Jimi Hendrix songs that you want to do like certain fingering that you cannot just do a regular bar chord. So of course you have to do the Jimi Hendrix chord with your thumb over here, right? Overall, I want to say this is a very, 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 very comfortable and well-balanced guitar. I want to say that a lot of people might like this guitar. It feels comfortable like all throughout, and there's not like a lot of change. Again, a little bit similar to like that Tele, but where this one is a little bit different is that when you get out of the neck right here, the carve gets very, very dramatic, and you actually start experiencing a little bit of extra access, or it feels a little bit like I can feel my hand a little bit closer to the fretboard or to like the edge of the fretboard where the fretboard meets the body, as opposed to that Tele, for example, or even the Les Paul, especially the Les Paul. In this one, I can do like an A sharp. And in this one, for some reason, it makes me feel like it doesn't matter if your hands are big or small, you can still play this guitar pretty nicely. Maybe if your hands are a little bit on the smaller side, this is not your number one option or your number one best bet, but it's pretty comfortable. And again, like I'm saying, there's enough space for you to do chords and not hit the wrong string. You're always sort of right without having to think too much or like aiming, let's say, too much. Sometimes I feel like I'm in the range and I'm like, oh, I have to put my finger here. Oh, this one I cannot push too hard. And all these million things that you have to be thinking every time you're doing chords or like whatever you're doing in the guitar, right? This neck is very, very forgiving. And the combination of that with the fretboard radius, which is a 9.5, and the kind of like frets that this one has that are very thin and tall, very easy to nail almost anything. Of course, nothing beats practice, and you will never play anything if you don't practice a lot. So that's why I keep saying that you have to take everything with a grain of salt, because there's a lot of things that might sound like I may be selling you an idea that I'm not trying to sell you on. None of these guitars are going to make it easy for you to play. You're still going to have to practice a lot. Your fingers are still going to hurt. If one is hard for you to play, they're all hard for you to play. If one is easy for you to play, they're all easy for you to play. But they're all going to be different, and they're going to be like allowing you to do certain things maybe like in an easier way than in others. Marginal differences. Very marginal. All these things that we're talking about is basically the necks are different. They do feel different. Does it matter for the regular person? Maybe not too much. But when you start getting to the segment of the population that maybe have like a handicap, maybe they hurt their hands where they were young, maybe they got bit by a dog, maybe they got arthritis, whatever it might be, in those cases, I feel like it makes a lot more sense what kind of neck you're using. Sometimes maybe not even because of how easy it might be to play, but maybe how confident or how secure you feel when you're holding the guitar, how anchored you feel where you're trying to play, and then that actually translates in your playing. So going back to that perspective, there's a lot of differences, very marginal, but in the end, the only thing that matters is which one you like the most for yourself. Do you have a neck that you already prefer at home? Let me know in the comment section down below, my friend, and while you're there, remember to like, subscribe, and do all those cool little things that we like to do on YouTube, and enjoy this little bossa nova, my friend. I hope your day keeps getting better and better and better. All right, let's go. So there you go. Really, really, really great neck. A lot of access, a lot of positives. I don't want to say there's any negative in this neck. Maybe if you need a little bit more performance and a little bit maybe less of an authentic kind of like Strat experience, maybe the next neck is a little bit better for you. Fender American Ultra Stratocaster. Yes, I do love Stratocasters, and I have a few. And this is very interesting, you know, because when you have several of the same kind of style of guitars, where you feel like those differences should be smaller, you know, just because they're the same kind of guitar, you'd be surprised that they're like so different anyway. Like from Strat to Strat to Strat, the necks are so different. And I can only imagine once you start getting into like the vintage and custom shop where there's like way more options. Absolutely crazy, my friend. But let's move on. And this might be a little bit controversial because I know that in the website and anywhere else that you're going to find information about the Ultra, they say that it's a D neck. And I mean, granted, it might be. I kind of want to say that for me, it's more like an asymmetrical kind of neck. Because where, like I was saying, I feel like the Ds usually have like a flatter back. This one is very well rounded. Where the peak of the C would be kind of like in the center of that semicircle. It feels like in this one, it's tilted upwards. So you have a little bit more shoulder in the top than you have in the bottom of the fretboard, making it a very interesting experience. And I can see how somebody that does have a lot of experience with like different Stratocasters from like past eras might feel a little bit foreign in this guitar. Like it doesn't really scream Stratocaster like right out of the way. I feel like in that case, the American Pro 2 maybe does a little bit of a better job. Granted, I never played like a vintage Strat. I played the custom shops, but never like a vintage one. This one doesn't feel like that, but this honestly is probably one of the best necks that you could ever get. Like it has a lot of change throughout, but it's like very, very soft change. And like I was saying, that shape in the back, and what that basically translates to is that you can actually put your thumb almost anywhere in that very like top part of the shoulder. You can actually do anything and don't feel like too much of a transition. There's always a great spot for you to put your thumb in. Like there's never the feel that there's a place that you feel like insecure or something. You know what I mean? So far, I feel like this is probably the most comfortable guitar that I own. Or maybe just like for my type of hands and the way that I like to play a guitar or something. Because I got a nice cowboy chord. Maybe not the best of all of them, but I got a very nice cowboy chord. And then when I'm playing like leads over here, it feels pretty comfortable. And that cut that we've been seeing that they are doing in the shoulders, almost like every guitar has that little like shave here. In this one, it's a little bit more exaggerated. Let's see if we can capture it in the screen. I hope we can see it right there on camera. I'm sorry. Of course, I'm doing zooms and everything so you can appreciate. But yeah, the neck in this guitar is something very, very special. And I don't know how much of that is like in the margin of tolerances, and maybe I got something that's very different from what they are supposed to be giving out, or maybe I got like a transitional neck. But I want to say that this is like a very, very like in line with what I think is like the most modern, kind of like the picture of what a Fender kind of like is. And of course, since it's like the best that you can find in like the USA factory, maybe not the best, but it used to be the flagship. Maybe now we have like the ones deluxe with like the stainless steel frets and that kind of stuff. But when this came out, this was like the pinnacle of Stratness, like the modern great Strat that they had, right? I want to say that they really put a lot of effort and thought into making this really great. A very great way to do all your chord work and like all your leads and just like feel very comfortable all throughout the guitar. And then the other thing that I need to mention, of course, is that the radius in this fretboard is a compound radius, which means that it's not the same throughout the guitar, right? To add a little bit more to the changes of this guitar, is it starts at 10 inches and it finishes at 14 inches. So it's pretty nice that it flattens when you start getting close to the body of the guitar. And of course, it thins out a lot more when you start getting to the body of the guitar. So you can see how I can tell you that this neck is like a lot of effort. It's like a lot of change. Where like, for example, the Tele, nothing changed. It's pretty much the same guitar, just like one shape and that's it. This one feels different everywhere, but it feels like it just moves exactly where my body at least moves when I'm trying to play guitar. Does that mean that it's the best and might be the best for you? I'm not sure. Maybe if you like to do chords like over like that with your thumb over, maybe this is not the best feeling for that. I think the fact that maybe like the width or what we were talking about, this part from here to here, there's a lot of space in this guitar, a lot of space. Almost I want to say that this one is the one that I feel like the biggest jump when I go from, for example, my PRS to this. I feel the biggest jump because this one feels like it has a lot of space. And just like what we're going to talk about right now, my PRS sort of like doesn't. So now that we're talking about it, let's bring it out. Zoom. My PRS SE Custom 2408. If you're one of my friends that watch my videos a lot, you know that I use this guitar very often. And I say it a lot because mainly I have humbucker sounds and single coils in the same guitar. So whenever I'm like trying to do like a plugin review, for example, this is the most useful feature that I have. But also I really trust the way it sounds and I trust how like balanced the sound is. But whatever, this is not a review about the guitar. It's about the neck. And this one, I'm just going to call it the little C. I know PRS call it like the white thin pattern, I want to say, or white thin. I don't think the pattern applies in the SE, but whatever, the white thin, I would just call it the mini C because it's just exactly like, for example, like a Stratocaster or like the Tele, a nice, very well-rounded shape, very comfortable all throughout, but it's just like small. I don't know, this guitar makes me feel like my hands are big. I don't know why. And this guitar right here was the one that made me feel like maybe I have like fat fingers. Because it's like I have to put like that extra more effort every time I try to do like a chord because it's like everything feels like very crowded to me. I feel like the width in this one is less than in like, for example, a Strat or like I said, the biggest jump would be between my Les Paul and my Ultra and this. Huge difference. But the depth is not really that much more. It's like almost, I want to say, it lives right between my Stratocaster Ultra, which is not a thin neck at all. And this is a little bit chunkier, I want to say, but not as chunky as the Les Paul, for example. So the Les Paul would be a tiny little bit chunkier, but since this is like a different shape, because where this is like very nicely rounded, like a very, very traditional C, I want to say, that one has like that blunt part in like the top, let's say, of the depth or the peak of the mountain. You know what we're talking about at this point, right? So even though this guitar says in the name that it's thin, I wouldn't think that this is a thin guitar. I mean, like having played Ibanez and even like Charvel, this is not a thin guitar. It's thin, like let's say if you compare it to something thicker that PRS has, like for example, the White Fat. Yes, that one is wide and fat. This is not. I feel like if you do have a smaller hand, and maybe if your fingers, like let's say, are like nicely manicured and like they're not like thick like mine are at the top, because I used to bite my nails when I was a kid, I confess. So you know what happens when you do that for years and years? Like they get a little bit like, I want to say like big heads. So if you don't have those kind of fingers, maybe this guitar is going to feel perfect. But if you're like me, maybe this is not my first option in terms of neck. But of course, this one has like so many other good things that I end up using it a lot. And that's just to tell you that sometimes maybe the thing that feels the best when you play it is not the thing that you should play all the time. Maybe sometimes it's just a matter of utility and it's like the best tool for the job that you need to do. And stay till the end of the episode, because that's when I'm going to reveal to you which one is the one that I feel feels the best. Like the best of all the Mixing My guitars. Stick till the end. Okay, let's move on to the second to last guitar. In this case, we have my Fender Stratocaster, the made in Mexico one. The guitar that made me feel dumb for so long because I cannot believe what a good guitar this is. And I'm super sad that they discontinue this kind of guitar. I kind of want to feel that they realized that they were giving way too much bang for the buck, because this guitar, my friend, I want to say that it's almost like an Ultra, but on a budget. And anywhere from like the carves and like some of the characteristics, I feel like this is a great guitar. And at the moment, for a great price. Yeah, of course, it felt like a premium instrument, but I feel like nowadays, like Fender has gotten so much more expensive that I'm like, wow, I'm lucky that I got this one when I did. Maybe I'm not the biggest fan of the pickups, even though they're really good, but this might become like an experiment guitar for me, because I've been thinking about changing the pickups here, and I have a few ideas of a bridge humbucker that I want to try, and some of the pickups that I want to try in this pickguard, but right now I'm not in the position to do that, so whatever. Let's get back to the neck. So again, this is a very refined neck. I want to say that it's very similar to the Ultra in the fact that it changes a lot. It's a neck with a lot of transitions, and in more ways than one, I know where this is not as refined, for example, as the Ultra, because where the Ultra, you almost don't notice any of the changes. This one is like a little bit more blunt. Like the first position, for example, is like super rounded. Almost the most comfortable cowboy chord, or chords in first position, if you know what I mean, with this one, because it feels like when you put your hand like this, the curvature in your hand just really fits really nicely in this side of the neck. Now, when you go right here, my friend, it just gets like super thin. Let's see if you can see it right here. You see how on this side, it looks like very big and then it gets like thinner. I mean, of course, my shirt doesn't really help you to see that. I'm pretty sure it's like trippy and the focus might not be getting it, but you know what I'm trying to say. It's very thin here and chunky in here. Anyway, very comfortable in many positions. Again, like I was saying, the transitions are a little bit more rough. Like you really feel like, ooh, all of a sudden it got really thin and then all of a sudden it got really fat. The rounding of the fretboard and this one, I feel like it's the most lackluster of all the Strats that I own. But that I feel like it's just a luxury almost, and it's like so easy to do because you just get a little bit of sandpaper and boop, you can round those edges easily, or even easier with like a Gillette. You just go tick, a couple times and you're done. More importantly is that you're going to have to actually sand the corners of the frets after, because those are going to be pretty sharp. But overall, this neck, I understand why they use it in this kind of range in the Mexican Fender factory and why this was like the top of that chain, because this is a really comfortable neck. Almost for anybody, I want to say. If you're not like super caught up into like vintage and you're just like very in touch to what you are handling at the moment, because I know it's very hard sometimes to like experience something in the present without preconceptions or without expectations or without preconceived notions about something else that we have or something that we're used to. it's very hard sometimes to actually live in the present and enjoy something for what it is and not judge it for what it's not. But when you're able to actually do that and abstract yourself and your thoughts and just like think about what you're thinking and just actually think about what you're holding in your hand at that particular moment, this is an incredibly comfortable neck. If this is the first guitar you ever give to anyone and you never change this neck to them, they're going to grow up thinking that this is the best neck in the universe. And every time you give them something different, they're going to be like, I like my other guitar. Like I was saying, so much so that, for example, every time I play my other guitars and I come back to this, I'm like, I keep talking smack on this guitar just because it's maybe like a budget sort of like option, you know, being an import and all that kind of stuff. But man, you cannot deny it. It's just such a great guitar with a super, super comfortable neck. The closest comparison, like I was saying, it must be the Ultra. And the last guitar in this conversation that I'm going to bring right now. Zoop. A Charvel Pro Mode, SoCal Style 2, blah, 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 A-Made, HH, blah, 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 you know, the mumble jumble they have. I just call it the Super Tele. This one has a neck very similar to that other MIM Strat. And I guess it kind of like does make sense because they're both from the same factory. But this one, I just want to say it's like the high performance version of that same neck. Not only has like way bigger frets, like this is like the biggest frets you can get, I think, in a guitar. But the neck has like that same symmetry and that like transition in elements everywhere. Like it feels like the neck is always changing. Everywhere your hand goes, it just feels like it's sort of like optimized for your hand to be there. And that gentle slope that you have in the body right here, coming from this part of the neck to this, where it gets a little bit thicker right here and much thinner right here and flatter. It's just such an enjoyable experience because you almost don't feel anything changing other than you're always in the best position. Your thumb is always in the right spot. And the finishing they use in this neck is like really, really nice. It's like almost unfinished, I want to say. It's like you just glide smoothly and the more you sweat, the smoother it gets. And not just smoother, like I feel like it's getting like flamier the more I sweat on it. Like it used to have a little bit of flame on this side, but now I have flame almost all over the neck, which is kind of cool. And it's like super flame, but it's like a peekaboo. Like if I move it, let's see, you see a little bit of flame right there in the neck. Anyway, this guitar is insane. The carves are fantastic. It feels incredible. I want to say that it's almost like my favorite feeling guitar. Like I love to play this guitar as much as I can. Every time I play it is a blast. Every time I'm playing this guitar, I feel like I can play better than I actually can. And it's just such a beautiful, 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 beautiful playing guitar. But these pickups in my system, they don't work as good as I want them to because, of course, I have all the other guitars. I would love this one to fit a little bit better, but this one doesn't fit. This one doesn't want to fit. This one want to stand out. And I love it for that, but it's like sometimes harder for me to like use it in the context of my work. I mostly use this guitar like as a fun piece. This is like what I down tune and where I play all my metal riffs and like I just have the most fun with this guitar. Super comfortable. If you're maybe starting out, this guitar is going to feel so good and you're going to be able to play like so quickly that it might be a great investment to have something. I don't know if maybe all Charvels are the same way, but this is a really nice proposition just because it's just very, very comfortable at a very competitive price. You know what I'm trying to say? And yes, this is actually thin. Maybe you're looking at a little bit close to like the Ibanez realm. Not quite there because this one still feels like C and there's no flat spots anywhere. It's just like the most gentle curve, almost like a speed bump on the road. Those like very gentle and wide ones. That's exactly how this feels, like a very gentle slope. Where, for example, like the Tele and the American Pro 2 is like a very, very protruding C. A lot of depth in that one. This one doesn't have it that much. But you still have a lot of real estate because there's a lot of width. Again, when I say width, I'm talking about this. I don't know. I mean, I didn't come up with these conventions of naming. That's like what you're going to read in places. And that's why I try to keep it that way so that when you read other things, like you still understand what they were talking about. But yeah, this neck, really nice neck. But having said all that, my friend, let's go get a few conclusions. So there you have it, my friend. All the necks that I have at my disposal in my studio that I've had for years and the necks that I actually play almost every day of my life. They all have their own similarities and differences. They all have their own idiosyncrasies and I love to play them all. And if there's something that you can get from this video, I want it to be that you need to be able to play any neck. I want hopefully that if you hold in your body and you don't have problems in your fingers or anything like that, I hope that you don't fall trap of those things that, oh, I can only play this kind of neck or that kind of neck, or I need a thin neck to be fast, or I need a thick neck to be able to do bends. None of those things matter, my friend. All that matters is that you feel good playing what you're playing. But at the other side of that coin, it's important for you to just be able to play anything and just enjoy the things for what they are. Like I was saying a little bit earlier, live in the moment. Enjoy the guitar that you're playing for what that guitar is and what that guitar has to offer. Everything is great. Everything is what you make out of it. It's up to you to make it great. If you cannot be fast on your Strat, practice, my friend. And like they say, practice slow and then just build it up. Practice slow and build it up. Always use a metronome so that you know that you're actually getting progress and you can put it into numbers. You know that now I can play at 60, now I can play at 70, now I can play at 75. That's how you're going to get faster, not getting a guitar with a thinner neck. But on the other hand, if you have issues in your hands, let's talk about more concrete things, really quick conclusions about what I think about my whole collection of guitars that I have right here. Which is not a collector's collection, it's a collection of tools that I use, like as if you have a hammer and you have a screwdriver and you have a Phillips, you have a drill, you have all these things in your shed, you know what I mean? The same thing, I have all these guitars because they all produce a different sound that I need and that I want. And since music is my job, it makes sense for me to own them. Maybe it's not imperative for me to make music that I own all these guitars, but you know, it's fun for me and then it's fun for me to talk to you about all of them, right? So what would be my recommendations after this whole, like, I don't know, hour of rambling? If you have smaller hands, maybe a PRS is what you want to go to. Not because it's thin, but because smaller fingers can get through it very easily. If your hands are a little bit bigger, maybe I would recommend you something in the Mexican factory of Fender, or if you can afford an Ultra, or even the American Pro 2, those are all great for big hands. It doesn't matter if your fingers are like mine, like a little bit too fat, you're going to be feeling very comfortable in all of them. But for example, if you like to play with your thumb over, I don't think that the Ultra is going to make you feel good. You're probably going to like the American Pro 2 better. So even though the Ultra has like that super advanced neck, it doesn't really translate to more comfort if you don't really play in the way that that guitar was designed for you to play with. I feel like an Ultra, it's like designed for somebody who is like playing all these different intricate chords all over the neck. The person that all of a sudden starts playing little lines, little riffage. There's nothing really stopping you in that neck from doing whatever you want to do. There's nothing like even like to get used to. Even like the height of the frets, just because they kept them in that medium jumbo size, which is a little bit lower than the Amp Pro 2s, just makes it easier for you to slide from one note to the next without having the feeling, you know what I mean? So again, a different tool for a different utility. I want to say that maybe universally, the Charvel would be the most comfortable for most people. And yeah, you might need to do a little bit of work with it because I've done a little bit of work in that neck. Mainly the fret sprout that it gets really bad. Mainly fret sprout that it's gotten bad a couple times already. But it's like really comfortable and you can really play anything. And like I said, it's almost like my favorite guitar to play. Maybe not my favorite guitar to hear, but my favorite guitar to play. But even then, my friend, my very favorite neck in my whole collection of guitars right here is my Fender American Ultra Stratocaster. This to me, my hands, feels amazing. And even though I like all my guitars, this one is my number one. And that's enough about me, my friend. I want to hear about you in the comment section down below. And remember always while you're there, like, subscribe. If you can financially support me, please hit that super thanks button. I thank you so much. And if you have some more time to go watch another video, go watch this one right here, my friend. I'll be waiting for you. And other than that, I'll thank you so much for being here today. See you soon.